Welcome to CNT Collectibles. This is C, and I hope you're doing well. Hope everybody had a very enjoyable extended holiday weekend. Hopefully, you were with family and had some good times. We had a good one as well. But it's back to work. So we'll continue on with our off-season homework, looking at the shortstops today. See who might be on that long-term generational path, who might be good pickups that we can just buy and hold for a period of time. And of course, we'll do the off-season homework and make sure they're still worthy of holds, and that's what this is all about. And so let's dig in and see what shortstops are on the track here. So a little bit of Hall of Fame info first about the position, and then we'll dig into some individual players. We have 26 shortstops in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. The highest Fangraphs WAR belongs to Hannes Wagner, 138.2, class of 36. Most hits belongs to Derek Jeter with 3465. He got in just a couple of years ago. Most home runs, Ernie Banks with 512, class of 77. 3,000 hit club, Derek Jeter, 3465. Hannes Wagner, 3420. Cal Ripken Jr., 3184. Robin Yount, 3142. And the 500 home run club, just one lone member. And that is, of course, the aforementioned Ernie Banks. All right, so we've got a few players elected by the Baseball Writers Association post-1980. So these are more current models, current references. Comparing current players to Hannes Wagner probably isn't fair. Again, we've looked at this in earlier episodes. The replacement level player has gotten a heck of a lot better over the past really century, and really over the past couple of decades. And so you want to look at some more of the contemporaries and see how the current players are tracking, and might give you a better idea of their chances of getting into the Hall here. We're throwing Ernie Banks in with these guys because there's not a whole lot of them, and he got in 77, so close enough to 1980 for our purposes here. So Cal Ripken blew off the doors and kind of skews the overall Fangraphs wins above replacement metric, but for the most part, if you can get into the 60s, you're worth a look. And then from there, we want to look at hardware. Can you lock down some silver sluggers like Barry Larkin and Cal Ripken Jr.? Can you nab a bunch of gold gloves like Ozzie Smith? Can you make a bunch of All-Star games? Robin Yount didn't do a whole lot of All-Star games, but he did win a couple of MVPs, and so combine that with his 3,000 hits. You got yourself a Hall of Famer. So that's really what we want to do here. Is our starting point is the wins above replacement. And then we want to see if they've been able to garner enough hardware around the edges to get the call. So, player, before we get too far into this, that I think a lot of Baseball Hall of Fame followers would say, it's a matter of when, not so much if. And it's Bill Dalen, 75 wins above replacement, 2,400 hits. This is kind of a turn of the century type player, but a lot of people feel that at some point when the old timers committees will get him into the Hall. And so, if you're interested, he's got some interesting, beautiful looking cards from the T206 type era. All right, shortstop, wins above replacement by age. They start producing at a pretty decent level around age 22, and then settle into that 4.5-ish win above replacement, between ages 24 and 31, peaking at around age, somewhere between 27 and 31. So, the shortstops, they will tend to lose their range just a little bit and have to get moved off that position at some point. But they can hang around for a while here, and you can see that that decline starts to happen in the early 30s, like most other positions. And so we're not looking for first baseman type wins above replacement where they're going to put up 5-6 WAR in a season or anything like that. That would be nice. That would be helpful. But if you can manage 4.5, 5 over a consistent period of time, and then age gracefully, then that might be close enough to fit the bill. Again, adding additional hardware. So again, if you're a shortstop that's needing to average about 4.5 wins above replacement or less, then that's a player that's worth a little bit longer look here. So a couple players that they would make this list mostly because of their age, but they're worthy of watching, I guess, over the next few years, and see if they can really start to put things together. We'll just throw those here. We don't need to spend a ton of time on them. C.J. Abrams is probably the most interesting for the most part. 21 years old. He hasn't really put up much, but because of his age, again, if you come up early, that's half the battle right there. So needs to average just over 4 wins above replacement to get to kind of that 58 wins above replacement by 35, and then you have a couple of years after that where you tack on a little bit more than a replacement level player, but you squeak into the 60s there. O'Neal Cruz sure has the exit velocity, but he's got a big strikeout rate to go along with it, putting up a 1.3 win season here. Hall of Famers at age 23 are sitting at about 8.3 wins above replacement. So he's going to have to start putting up some pretty decent numbers quickly here. Jeremy Pena, if you counted his postseason stats, gosh, it would have been a pretty terrific season overall. For the most part, it was a really good season, 3.4 wins above replacement. But at age 24, the average Hall of Famer has 12.5 wins above replacement. So he's going to average just under 5, which puts him in a tough spot just considering his age and when he came up. But if he's able to rattle off some pretty nice seasons here quickly, he could quickly make up the gap here. And Bryson Stott, kind of in a similar position, not as good as Pena, so he's got a little bit farther to go. So again, they're up, they're playing, so we'll see if they can make some hay in the next couple of years here. But for now, we'll just keep them in the back of our mind here. A few honorable mentions. These are some bigger names, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on. But I think people would be kind of interested in where are they at, and if for the most part, the guys that are getting their own single page analysis, if they're not on that list, they're even worse off, and that's a lot of these guys. But again, it doesn't take too long here just to kind of throw them in here and see what we see. So Ahmed Rosario, he's 26 years old with 7 Fangraphs WAR to his name. He's got 9.7 Baseball Reference WAR, but again, fairly off. Long shot off the pace here. So again, over 5.5 runs. We want to see 4.5 or lower, give or take, something like that roughly. But if he's able to put up some 5 or 6 win seasons, he hasn't really been able to do that yet. So it's hard to say, we need you to average this when you haven't done it yet for us season, to get him to average it for the next decade. And so that's why he's an honorable mention. Javi Baez, kind of the same thing here. He has put up this number before, but hasn't done it consistently. So finds himself well off the track. Fangraphs WAR, Baseball Reference WAR is fairly similar, so that number is not going to change a whole lot here. An interesting one we'll come back to in just a second here is Trevor Story. Dansby Swanson, 28 years old, 16 wins above replacement. He's really turned it on the past couple of years, but we need you to step on the gas around age 23. And so he's about halfway off. He's about halfway where he needs to be here. And needs to average just under 6 wins above replacement to get to that roughly 60 wins by age 35. Tim Anderson, the same thing. He's got a big bat. He can hit the ball. There's no question about it, but didn't do it soon enough and consistently enough for the most part here. So again, finds himself solidly off the pace. So again, big discrepancy. You go back to Trevor Story here. Fangraphs has him at 23.7 wins above replacement. Baseball Reference has him at 29.3 wins above replacement. So if we just kind of break it down either way here, on the Fangraphs model, he needs about 5.72 wins above replacement, which puts him in kind of a tough spot here. He's diverging from the path. The last few years haven't been great. We'll see if being in Fenway Park juices these numbers just a little bit here. He might go back to shortstop. We'll see if he has an opportunity to use his glove. Wasn't a terrible defender or anything like that. See if he can pad his wins above replacement stats here. But if we look at his Baseball Reference WAR, puts him really close to the line here. So in Baseball Reference terms, now again, though, the wins above replacement is going to be, the requirement's going to be slightly higher. If it wouldn't be the 58 by, it wouldn't be this trajectory here. It would be a little bit more accelerated. Again, some of those players, for the most part, they're pretty similar, but some of those players do have some higher WAR. If you look at like Cal Ripken, I think he was closer to 100 wins above replacement. Ozzie Smith, same thing. So a lot of these numbers would be just a touch higher here, so he'd be slightly off the track still, but a better trajectory overall as Baseball Reference thinks a little bit more highly of his game here. So interesting enough. We'll see what the next couple of years in Boston can bring for him. So all right, let's get into some more of the individual targets here. Nico Horner with a nice bat. He had a good season at the plate, but is it too little too late here? Kind of flat, and then this year started to put it together at age 25. He started to do a little bit last year as well, but this year really kind of turned it on, but then he got hurt. So Fangraphs Baseball Reference WAR similar. He needs to average over 5 wins above replacement to get to that drop 58 by age 35, 200 hits, 13 home runs, 277 average. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I believe he's good enough to track this, but just coming up at this later date kind of takes him off that longer term path. Willie Adames, ever since coming over from Tampa Bay, making his way to Milwaukee, he has been one of the better shortstops in the league, really one of the top handful, and so you can see that acceleration in his trend has been pretty solid. 2020 kind of took him off the path a little bit, otherwise he'd be right along that line, believe it or not, but that counts, and we'll see how it's treated longer term. So at age 26, he has 13 Fangraphs WAR, 15 Baseball Reference WAR, needs to average just under 5 wins above replacement over the next decade or so to get to that 60 level here. So he'll have to quadruple his number of hits, his home runs average. He'll have to probably creep that up just a little bit unless he starts to win a ton of awards. So again, outside looking in, but that trajectory is interesting, and we'll see if he can continue what he's been doing in Milwaukee and be a above average player, pretty solid player here. So Wander Franco, get into some more of the serious targets. I hesitate to put a player his age on this list because you're primarily on here because of age, but he's shown an amazing skill set thus far. So 21 years old. And even though he was hurt this year, I mean, he's still playing at an age where most guys aren't even, at the high levels of the minors yet. So 4.7 Fangraphs WAR, 6.1 Baseball Reference WAR. He needs to average under 4 wins above replacement on an annual basis over the next 15 years to get to that 58 by 63. So one of the challenges here is, again, he's young, so he'll have to be consistent for a really long time, but he has shown a skill set to hit the ball, and perhaps he starts to get a little bit stronger and turn some of those doubles into home runs. Doesn't need to do a ton. Again, only one 500 home run guy in the Hall of Fame at the shortstop position, but adding some additional power and everything like that's not going to hurt things. So 168 hits, 13 home runs, 282 average. Again, what I'm looking for from him basically is his plate presence, his strikeout rate, his walk rate. He certainly understands the strike zone and can hit the ball. So I think this is one of your players that could be above the line. He's coming up early, producing for a long time here if he's able to stay healthy. And his prices reflect that for the most part. I mean, he's no secret or anything like that. People are on him, but if he does have a slump or anything like that, he's got a little bit of room, and it may be worth I guess scouting his cards a little bit more closely, monitoring it, giving that a little deeper look here. So Bo Bichette, age 24, 11, I call it 12 or something like that. Needs to average about 420 or less on an average basis. He's been able to do that. So can he average this? Can he continue to get better? He's certainly capable of putting up some 5, 6, perhaps 7 win seasons at some point here of a really nice peak. So already at 478 hits with 70 home runs, 297 average. Again, another guy with great plate presence. He does have an all-star game under the belt here. So he's tracking really, really nicely here. And he's only 24 years old. So over the next decade, if you're close to that 200 hit area or something like that with a 300 average, you should be relatively close to that. And put in a few years after that, this could be a guy winding up with 2,500 hits or something like that, and absolutely satisfying those requirements. So he's showing what it's early, but he's doing what he can right now. And that's one of the, again, speculation, but probably a high-level speculation type target here. So, all right, Corey Seager's 28 years old. Needs to average about 4.5 wins over the next 7 years or so to get to that 60-ish win area here. So, 863 hits. You'll have to triple that for the most part. 137 home runs and a 287 average. So, he can hit. There's no question about it. It's really about health. Rookie of the Year came up, performed wonderfully, hurt, and then you had the shortened season here. He still produced, and he's been really pretty terrific over the past couple of years here. So Rookie of the Year, 3 All-Star games, a couple Silver Sluggers, and a top 5 MVP. And so he's tracking just fine here. We'll see if he can continue to add to the All-Star totals, some more Silver Sluggers, throw in some other hardware here, and stay healthy for the most part. But he's tracking all right here. So this is again, roughly, you're getting into the age where it's no longer speculation. You're kind of on the track of your art. And he seems to be tracking pretty well here. That's a player that I like to collect. So Trey Turner's another one, kind of in the same mold here. 29 years old with roughly 30 wins above replacement. He's to average about 4.3, and he's been able to do that over the next 6 years to get to that 58 by 35, and then kind of age gracefully here. He's got over 1,000 hits and maintains a 302 average. So for his career, a couple of All-Star games, Silver Slugger, batting title, and a top 5 MVP. So he's an elite level player. There's no question about it. Stay healthy, keep doing this. Now, one of the things under the hood that we need to be aware of is this year, he had the highest percentage of swinging at balls outside the zone that he's ever had. His number's been steadily creeping up. He's been just swinging at more pitches in general, and it's been disproportionate to balls outside the zone at roughly 36%. And so it's going to be difficult to maintain a high BABIP, high average if you continue on that path. So is that a one-off, or is this something that he'll correct over the next year or two here? So it'll be worth watching here. He's been able to handle it so far. Walk rate, strikeout rate haven't changed a whole lot, but if he continues to swing at a number of balls outside the zone and just chasing pitches, that could be a problem. We won't have that graceful aging or anything like that. So for now, on the track, well within reason of what he's capable of doing to stay in that track. So we'll see how he kind of ages here. But again, one of your higher level speculation targets. All right. Fernando Tatis, this is where it gets a little tricky here. So, 23 years old, 13 wins above replacement, blowing away the numbers here. This is a generational type talent, not a generational type mind as he's shown so far here. So needs to average under 4 wins above replacement, which he would absolutely smoke for the most part over the next at least 7 8 years or something like that, which would put him well ahead of the line here. All-Star game, couple Silver Sluggers, couple top 5 MVP finishes at age 23. Again, this is insane stuff. The only question is, how will people treat him when it comes to the PEDs? So he hasn't shown the best judgment so far. Perhaps he's young enough. You are starting to see David Ortiz got into the Hall of Fame. A-Rod's starting to get some love. Bonds, who knows if those guys start to get in, then that really opens the door, and who cares for the most part. So just don't do it again. Learn from it, and hopefully you can get some guidance from some of the veterans on his team here. But generational type talent, high level speculation target here. So all right, get into some more of the it's hard to say sure thing here. There's still a lot to go, but these are guys I would be all right paying up for just a little bit more. So Xander Bogaerts, 29 years old. 35 wins above replacement, needs to average sub 4, which is a pretty attainable number for him. He does that on the regular here to get to that 60 wins by roughly 35. 1,400 hits and 156 home runs. 292 hitter. He's usually in the conversation for batting title. He does a great job. 4 All-Star games, 5 Silver Sluggers, top 5 MVP. Again, this is your one of your higher level targets here. Carlos Correa, another one. So 31 wins above replacement. Baseball Reference War has him at 39, so they like him even more here. So 33.3 wins above replacement. He'll have to average over the next 8 years or so in Fangraphs War. 2.31 in Baseball Reference War, which would make him probably the number 1 target if we went that route here. So but between the two, very solid target here. 900 hits. Again, just 27 years old. I think people forget how early he came up and started producing. 280 hitting, Rookie of the Year, a couple All-Star games, Gold Glove, top 5 MVP. So he came up and just started producing and hasn't looked back. So doesn't have a ton of hardware as of yet. So we'll see if he can add to that. But he is a wins above replacement monster. So if he can keep that going, it may be tough to deny him. So again, can he just double what he's done in the first 5 years? And he doesn't have to do it in the next 5. Can you do it over the next 6 or 7, really? Then we've really got ourselves in a Hall of Famer, makes him a pretty high-level target. And Francisco Lindor will wrap it up with just 2 slides left here. Francisco Lindor, probably your number 1 target here. So age 28, 42 wins above replacement. So again, with Fangraphs and Baseball Reference, a little discrepancy here, but either way, those are numbers that he puts up on a regular basis. It doubles that. So this is again kind of your generational guy that likely gets in 1,100 hits, 277 average, 4 All-Star games, a couple of Gold Gloves, Platinum Glove, top 5 MVP. And if we take Correa and Lindor and just compare them to the modern guys, so those 6 players that we looked at, their contemporaries that had a little bit higher threshold. So you guys getting 60 wins above replacement recently with a couple of Gold Gloves or a couple of awards, they haven't really gotten in. So when we're talking about the Younts and the Ripkins and the Banks and the Jeters, comparing them to those guys, you can see that Correa and Lindor still compare favorably even to their contemporaries here. So comparing them to all time, there are players that have 35, 40 wins above replacement that have gotten in, and you also have Honus Wagner at 130 or whatever it is. But if we compare them just to the most recent guys that have gotten in, they still look pretty favorable. So Lindor has got a lot of the hardware to go with it. Correa kind of the wins above replacement monster. So they're both on track and probably high-level targets. Xander Bogaerts, not quite as – he was right on the line with the all-time guys, so he'd be just below the line with this one. But with 5 Silver Sluggers, this is a guy that may, with some hardware, break the tie on that one. So that's what we've got for you. Hopefully you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff, and we will talk to you later. Bye now.